Hey everybody, welcome to the Going Optimal limited set review. We're going to do rares and commons and uncommons and everything all together, but I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on the rares. We're going to cruise through them pretty quickly and focus on the commons and uncommons, and we're going to try to understand, and I didn't even say the set name. This is, of course, Throne of Eldraine, the fall set of Magic the Gathering, and we're going to do a set review of Throne of Eldraine here. So, first card, we're going to start with black. Ayara, first of the Locthwain. Locthwain, that sounds correct. First of Locthwain. Black, black, black for a 2/3 legendary creature elf noble. When this card or another black creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And you can sacrifice another black creature to draw a card. I mean, I think if I'm heavy black, I'm never not running this. I don't know exactly how good it is. This is going to be one of the troubles with rating cards in this set is like, well, how black are we exactly? Because black, black, black is no joke, and it's a very significant cost, but also it's an interesting place to start because it puts us right on the question of what is this set asking of us? And I think you're going to see, from what I've seen and heard so far, a lot of push towards monocolored or heavy colored decks. I think we're going to see this actually reminds me a lot of the Shadowmoor situation. For those of you who played a long time and played and did limited during Shadowmoor, the way it played out in Shadowmoor, there's a lot of cards like this, you know, black, 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 or just made you want to have a lot of swamps. And I think one of the things that became clear to me in Shadowmoor is that, yes, you often drafted monocolored, but really instead of a 2 balanced color format, Shadowmoor became a heavy 1 color, light secondary color format. And I bet that's what happens here. My prediction for this format is that we're going to be having a lot of 10-7 and 11-6 type mana bases, maybe even 12-5. Like 12-5 is a mana base that we might see a lot in this format, where you're basically splashing a second color instead of splashing a third color, if that makes sense. So I'm going to check in on chat when I can here, but I'm going to leave the voting to you guys. I'm going to say that, man, this is where voting is just so difficult. Like, if you're heavy black, I guess you got to assume that this is a pack one, pick one type situation. How happy are you to take this early, not knowing else what's going on with your deck? And really, it's a tough cost. But I would say I would give this like I don't think it's much better than average, so I would put it like maybe a 5 because it's better than just average, but the black is pretty oppressive. So I would give it about a 5. But let's move on. Bake into a pie. By the way, our grading scale here we're using is 1 to 7, where 1 is the worst, 7 is the best, and 4 is right in the middle. So if you wanted to convert it to like a grading scale, a 4 would be like a CC+, 1 would be an F, and a 7 would be an A+. So, bake into a pie. 2 black, black, instant, destroy target creature, create a food token. This is premium removal for the set because it destroys any creature. There's no the lack of any kind of narrowness. It destroys anything that can target is amazing. The food token has a variable value depending on how synergistic your food token making is. The flavor is obviously great. And I love this card a lot. Where are we at on... I mean, obviously it's great, but I would say, like, what are the drawbacks of a removal spell like this? Well, at 4 mana, you may be sometimes spending 4 to kill a 3 or a 2, so it's not always going to be a net mana advantage to use this removal. And if you don't care about life gain or food tokens, the food token part isn't that big a deal. However, there's lots of really cool ways to use food tokens in the set besides sacking them to gain life. So because I've seen a lot of that, it makes me like this card even more, because I don't think that the food token is just going to be a life gain thing. It has a lot of other applications as well. So where is this? It's obviously at least a 5. The question is, does it rise up to like 6? And I'm going to say I'd give this one a 6. I think it's going to be that good. Barrow Witches, 4 and a black for a human warlock. It's a 3/4 at common. When in Barrow Witches enters the battlefield, return target knight card from your graveyard to your hand. That's pretty big game if you're gravediggering, you know, one more to get a 3/4 instead of a 2/2, and you can only gravedigger knights. Interesting. We love, love, love Gravedigger. If you are in the knight deck, this seems like it's going to be a very high pick. One nice thing about this particular Gravedigger is that it's common, and people not in the knight deck aren't going to fight you for it. So you will be able to get this if you're the knight deck and nobody else around you is. And that seems really powerful. I like it. I think this is a build around of sorts. But I would say I'm going to give this a 4 because that's an average. I mean, I don't know how you guys are doing the. I ultimately left the voting to for Fiddles to figure out here, but I would call it a 4 simply because in the knight deck it's going to be much better than a 4, and in the non-knight deck it's going to be much worse than a 4. So it kind of averages out to a 4, but I would say if you're heavy knights, this becomes a 5 to 6 range type card. I mean, I don't know, David. I hate ratings to begin with. So you think the knight deck won't prioritize it? I don't think you'll have to, but like if I'm playing a heavy knight deck, I'm happily running and it depends on what else is going on at 5, but I'm happily running 2 or 3 of these in a heavy knight deck. Yeah, ratings are fun, but but their fun is not as useful as I'd like it to be. My problem with ratings is they require all of these caveats and sideboards and no, wait, this is a build around, and it's like, this is why I like talking out cards. Context matters. Wujo says they'd be surprised if I fit 3 of those in my deck. I don't know. If they're curve topping a knight deck, I could see running 3, but what's the minimum knight count before I'm happy to run this? And how good is the knight? I don't think you're... I mean, I don't know. I'll let you know if I see a knight that's so good that I'm running Barrow Witches with only that one knight, but that seems bad to run a 3/4 for 5 without significant upside on the rules text. Aren't there better knight cards to pick? I mean, this isn't even a knight. I don't know what the question is, New Brew. Belle of the Brawl is 2 and a black for a 3/2 menace. Whenever Belle of the Brawl attacks, other knights you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. It's an uncommon. Nice knight build around card here. I think you're going to be happy to play a 3/2 menace for 3 without any other knights at all, though. So it's a fine place to start. We've seen aggro decks in the past love a 3/2 menace for 3. So this is just like that. Plus, I'm going to call this a 5, though. I think it's better than average, but not just wildly better than average. And if you get a stupid sick knight deck, it could creep up above 5 towards 6, but I think we're just looking at a 5 level rating here. Yeah, Belle of the Brawl is a funny name too. This is good. I like Belle. Then we have Blacklance Paragon, a 1 and a black for a 3/1 rare. It's a human knight with flash. And when Blacklance Paragon enters the battlefield, target knight gains Death Touch and Lifelink until end of turn. So it can target itself, so that's good to know. That seems great. And this is a rare, so we're not going to see it a ton. But this is, we take a look at the 3-1 for 2 that we often see at common, and particularly in white, and they tend not to be super playable, but this, if you think of this more as a combat trick for your knight deck that produces a 3-1 body, it gets much better. But I still think this is like in the 5 range to me. It's not insane. It's just a little better than average. Yeah, pretty meh rare. I agree, Rob. Art is cool. Look at all of these roses. There's flowers. It's flowers and death all together. Looks like the crowd has this at 6. I don't see how you put this at 6. You realize 6 is one lower than the best. Like, so if you translate that to a through F scale, if 7 is like A plus A, 6 is at least saying this is like B plus A minus level, and I just don't think it rises up that high. It's not that impactful. Bog Naughty, 3 black for an uncommon 3/3 creature, fairy, flying, 2 and a black, sacrifice of food, target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn. Well, and there you go. It's talking about how food does not have to be used to gain life, especially because, like, if you're an aggro deck, what do you care about gaining life? You're just trying to get him dead, so it's good to have alternate things to do. This whole package is pretty expensive, but I'm pretty okay with the old 3/3 flying for 5. I have talked often about how the blue cards being 3/4 flyers for 5 have been pretty format defining the last several sets. And so one question I have about a 3/3 flyer in this set is, is there a presence of, does blue have some common 3/4 flyers again? Because if blue has common 3/4 flyers for 5, I like this a lot less, because Bog Naughty is just going to be facing as a 3/3 staring at 3/4s. But if it's a relatively good power and toughness for the air in the set, then it gets much, much better. And man, that ability to throw food, to turn food into removal, that's amazing. So really, my question is only, how good is this as a French vanilla? How good is a 3/3 flyer for 5? But the ability to do something much better with your food than gain a little life is really appealing to me. And if I get one of these early, I'm definitely going to be looking to pick up lots of food makers. And again, this is, I think, above average, so I'm looking at a 5 or a 6 here, but I don't think it quite rises to 6 level because of all the setup costs, so I'm going to go with 5 on this one myself. Yeah, it's just that it requires a lot of setup, Steven. If you can get a bunch of food token going and everything, then, like, in some decks this is going to be insane. But in terms of an average case, I like it at 5. Cauldron Familiar is a single black mana for a 1/1 cat at uncommon. When Cauldron Familiar enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Okay, whatever. Sacrifice a food. Return Cauldron Familiar from your graveyard to the battlefield. Seems like a lot of wheel spinning for very little actual gain. When Cauldron Familiar enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain. So you drain, but it doesn't do anything once it's there. I don't like this card at all. I think it's got a lot of stuff happening, but that stuff doesn't add up to a full card's worth of value. It's cheap. It's something to do with food, but I am just never really playing this, and I'm going to put it at 2. It's not an F, but it's barely above an F, so to me this is a straight 2. The Cauldron of Eternity is 10 black for a mythic legendary artifact. It costs 2 less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard. So it can be a lot less than 12, but the least it can be is 2. So what do we get for this? Whenever a creature you control dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. So your stuff goes to the bottom of the library. And then 2 and a black, tap, pay 2 life, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. Wow, this is quite the build around, I think. You really want to be like self-milling or trading off. I like this in a self-mill deck, and maybe it's fine even, like, let's say you have 4 creatures in the yard, and it gets an 8 mana discount and is just 4 mana, and you but that's interesting. It's basically like you don't get fresh meat. So you, unless you self-mill, you don't get fresh meat. But I think this could be powerful. I'd like to build around this at some point. That would be fun, but it's very hard to grade. It's such a build around. I'm gonna kind of cop out and just call this a 4 in my, because, like, I don't know, like it's such a build around that it's gonna be amazing or unplayable depending on what you're up to. The setup is huge though, yeah, as Bob points out. Rob says it's unplayable and limited. I don't think it's unplayable, but I don't know if it's good. Maybe I'm going to go to 3. It's probably worse than I think it is, but I don't think it's unplayable, Rob. I think you just have to really build around it. Still, I'm not going to spend too much time on mythics and stuff. This isn't the raw power that you're looking for in a mythic. You know, you just want that insano creature with a great ETB or whatever, but it's tricksy build around. Yeah, you're right, Mabinap. And exactly, Shateri points out that it interacts badly with itself, which is why I think you want to run this in like blue-black self-mill. I think you're wrong, Rob. I just think it's a build around. I don't think you're wrong that it's not good in the abstract. I think you're wrong that it's unplayable. I think that you can totally build around it. This set has a lot of self-mill, and self-mill works there. Right. Funky, everybody's pointing out the drawback of bottoming the creature, but again, self-mill. Build around it with self-mill. Anyway, Cauldron's Gift is a little simpler to evaluate, probably. Cauldron's Gift is 4 and a black for sorcery, and it has Adamant. And if at least 3 black mana was spent to cast this spell, put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. There you go. There's the self-mill we're talking about. You may choose a creature card in your graveyard. If you do, return it to the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. The trouble with these effects is that you're paying 5 mana for a creature and getting a +1/+1 counter on it, but you need to have a good creature in your yard, and you need to have the 5 mana. It needs to, like, there's a lot of setup to make these work. We have seen, one way to evaluate cards when you're looking at cards like this for the first time is to do a comparison of the past. We have seen cards like Cauldron's Gift. They often, 5 mana for a sorcery to put something in a graveyard onto the battlefield is pretty commonplace in Magic, and it hasn't been particularly playable of late. So why would this be more playable? Well, because it does some self-mill. Well, you get the +1/+1. I still don't love this, and I think these cards underperform, and I would call this a 3 until proven otherwise. I think it's below average. These tend not to make it, and I'm not going to prioritize this at all. But maybe with that last, maybe with this Cauldron, you can combine these two. Yeah, and there you go. Cauldron's Gift, Cauldron of Eternity. See what they did there? Look, coming out of the Cauldron. Still too expensive, because in order to be really happy, you want to get something back that's worth more than 5 mana, and that's not easy to do, actually. This is limited perspective, definitely. This is a limited set review. Oh, in fact, I told people I was going to tweet again when I said this, so I'm going to tweet really quickly. We are now... Oh, what? Sorry. Why did it do that? I hate technology, except when I love it. One second. Maybe I'll trim this out of my YouTube video. I'm sorry, but I did want to let you got to see my little notes there. That's my my sheet of templates that I pull from to make my Twitch postings or my tweets, etc. I'm also going to change my info. All right, thank you for your patience. Very close here. We're going to go to my dashboard and change the stream info to Throne of Eldraine limited set review. All right, we are updated. Thank you for that. Thank you for your patience there. I'm back. I'm looking at chat. I'm talking magical cards. Clackbridge Troll is 3 black for a rare troll. It's an 8/8. So what's the drawback here? Well, it has trample haste. So what's the drawback here? When Clackbridge Troll enters the battlefield, target opponent creates 3 0/1 white goat creature tokens. Okay, so 3 chumps, and does not, but it has trample, so they're not good chumps. At the beginning of combat on your turn, any opponent may sacrifice a creature. If a player does, tap Clackbridge Troll, you gain 3 life and you draw a card. Oh, wow, that's still very good. So you got this 8/8 trample haste, and they have 3 chimes that they can keep this thing from attacking you. If not, and if they do, you get life and a card, which is really, that seems pretty good. Let's see, what are we going to say? So I'm going to play this happily in every black deck I have. I think it just is one of those answer me cards. Answer me or die, right? I really like that when a card says if you don't come up with an answer, this is really going to get you. That's true. They could delay more than 3, but that's I still think it's pretty abyssy. Even if we said, like, even if this couldn't attack, I don't know. Maybe I'm overrating it because it does give the opponent choices, and we know that when opponents get choices in Magic, it can produce a worse situation than you think. But I still think it may give them time to find an answer, but while they're buying time, you're drawing cards. So I think I'm going to put this at a 6. I think this is a 6. This isn't an A+, but I think you're going to run this, and it's going to be a real nightmare for your opponents to manage. So it's not even useless when you're far behind, because they still have to, if they don't want an 8/8 blocker, then they have to give you a card in life. So I think it even is fine in that spot. Yeah, I like it at 6. Epic Downfall, 1 and a black for a sorcery. Exile target creature with converted mana cost 3 or greater. That's a nice, sweet spot. Yes, you can't pick off some 2s, and maybe you're going to get run over by weenie hordes, but for the most part, this just gets everything that you really care about in a game of limited Magic. The question is, how high can you go with 1-for-1 removal? I can't bring myself to put like a 6/ in LR terms, I can't really go to the A range for 1-for-1 removal. So I'm just going to call this a 5. Maybe if it were instant, you could start talking about 6, but I think it's even hard to come up with 6 as a rating for just 1-for-1. For something to be 6+, I really need to feel like it consistently gets me, 2-for-1 level card advantage or better, or impact, So I'm going to say 5 on this, but we're obviously going to be snapping it up first pick quite a bit when we're not rare drafting for gems. From a limited perspective, why is Murder not a 7? Well, because it doesn't have that much impact on the game. Take a real 7, like Mythic Chandra from last set. Mythic Chandra does so much more than a Murder. She crushes Murder on so many levels. She can, first of all, murder something. She can murder something on her own. She can wipe the board. She can win the game. You take a real A and see the multitude of things it can do and the huge impacts it can have on a game. And suddenly Murder is like, oh, well, yeah, Murder's good, but it just gets rid of one creature. How does that compare to Chandra, right? Could you always post the name of the current card for those with bad lag? Do you see what's above my head? I'm gonna look up. Oh, directly before the poll? I'm not running the poll. You need to talk to the person running the poll. That would be Fiddles, but I'm sure Fiddles is paying attention to your feedback, so I think it's Fiddles. Is it Fiddles? Anyway, moving on. Eye Collector. A single black for a 1/1 flying fairy at common. When Eye Collector deals combat damage to a player, each player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard. Well, if you're seriously into self-mill, maybe you're desperate enough for this, but I think there's got to be better ways to self-mill. What else would make me happy to play a 1/1 flyer for 1? Because it's not great. I tend to avoid these cards, but if there was something that pumped flyers, if there was ninjutsu, something where being evasive on turn 2 could do something amazing. But ultimately, I'm not liking this. I'm going to call it a 2. I won't call it a straight F, but I'm not looking to play this. And the 2 just leaves room for some synergy I'm not seeing or something I don't understand. Or maybe it's just a hyper aggro format that somehow supports 1/1s for 1 in the air, but I doubt it, so I'm just going to call this a 2 and move on. Festive Funeral is 4 and a black for an instant at common. Target creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard. Well, it's instant speed, but man, for 5 mana at black, I expect to just reach out and kill stuff. So I think this is pretty weak as far as removal goes. It has setup cost and it's 5 mana. This is super clunk, I think. I'm going to call this a 3 tops. It is still removal, but there's just such other, we've seen we've seen Bake Into a Pie and Epic Downfall. I mean, that's an uncommon, but isn't there, didn't they repeat, what did I do? There we go. I think there's a card more, I think there's more good removal coming. So I don't think we're going to play this much. I think there's just too much other good black removal. I kind of want to go, almost want to go 2 on it, but I'll go 3. I don't think you can go to 2, but yeah, maybe it's 2 or 3. But I'll give it a, it might just be a 2. I think it's a 2. I think this is like a D. Why would you play this when there's other great removal in the set? Foreboding Fruit, 2 and a black. Sorcery. Target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. Generally a fine effect. Divination for black usually costs you some life, but that's fair. It has Adamant. If at least 3 black mana was spent to cast the spell, so black, create a food token. So that's funny. You can get... food gains you 3 life, so if you get some time, This is actually divination plus a life back if you've done adamant. I think this is fine. I think this is like a solid C in an average deck, maybe even a C plus. You know, if I grade it, maybe go like I think this is a 5. I think it's just a 5. It's a little better than average. I love drawing cards. Maybe that's just me, but card drawing at 3 mana is worth it to me to say 5, even though it's got this drawback. And that's part of it, like probably like 4.5, because it's like 5 if you can do the adamant, and it's like 4 if you can't. So yeah, it does have the mode of target opponent loses the game at 2 life is definitely a play that happens. But I love divination. And it's not, sometimes it's a better divination. You got to take into account that some percentage of the time you're going to actually get a food token and get the life back. So it has a mode where it's better than divination. And divination to me is an easy 5. So if I have to choose between 4 and 5, I find card draw spells to be that valuable. Like basically this is me predicting, like what would you have given Dark Bargain when you first saw it, the Dominaria card, right? 4 and a black to draw 2 of your top 3 and lose some life. It didn't seem that great, but then it became linchpin for that format. So I think foreboding fruit, while 5 may seem high to you, to me it's just reflective of how amazing 3 mana to draw 2 cards has been in recent Magic. So that's why I put it at 5. Yeah, if you're at 2, you can't use it, but Forever Young, 1 and a black sorcery. Well, we have a meme candidate here, don't we? Except I don't like. There's 2 Forever Young songs. There's like the jump out to me. There's the Alphaville song and the Rod Stewart song, and I dislike both of them. But you know. Enough of that. Anyway, what do we think of it? Forever Young, put any number of target creature cards from your graveyard on top of your library, draw a card. For 2 mana, I like this a lot. We have seen things like, so the first time I saw this effect that I can remember was in Lorwyn. It was called Footbottom Feast, and it was 2 and a black, and it was an instant. But other than that, it was exactly the same. The floor on this is just 2 mana cycle, which I think is important to note. This card has a very, very strong floor, being a 2 mana cycler. And late game, sometimes you just want to draw your best creature, which you can do, of course. But if it's late game and your graveyard is full, and you want to put a bunch of stuff on top of your library and set up endless creatures for the next N turns, it can be very game-winning in a way that a simple Raise Dead is not. So what do we think of a Raise Dead with upside at 2 mana? I'm going to say, it's probably still just a 5, but it's definitely above average. I don't think you can raise it up to 6, but this is a solid 5. And I'm going to play probably 1 copy in every black deck that has a significant creature count. That's what I'm thinking. David Vero points out that it also triggers a second card drawn. I haven't mentioned that yet, but yes, there's this mechanic in particularly red-blue that rewards you for drawing a second card in a turn, and anything you see with draw a card on it gets a little boost because of that as well. I don't think it boosted up to 6, but I think 5 is fine for here. Soul Salvage is a better comparison. Yeah, Soul Salvage is like a 2-for-1. I like Soul Salvage even better, I think, because it's just a straight 2-for-1. It's got that divination quality to it. But, man, stacking your library with nothing but creatures for several turns in a row feels like a 2-for-1. Exactly, Stephen. But a reliable 2-for-1 is tough. They're both in that range. I probably put Soul Salvage at 5 as well for what it's worth. All right, Forever Young, 5. I like it. Ooh, we have our first adventure card, Foulmire Knight. Foulmire Knight is an uncommon 1/1 Death Touch zombie knight for a single black mana. I already love that. We've seen the power of the 1/1 Death Touch for 1. It's a fine card. It's not amazing, but it is fine and playable in every format it's appeared from a limited perspective. But it's got adventure mode. So if instead you cast the adventure side, which is 2 and a black for an instant, Profane Insight, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. So that's pretty amazing because it gives this card effectively 2 modes. It can be a 1/1 Death Touch for 1, which I'm already happy with, or at 4 mana, I can it can replace itself. I think that's pretty amazing. And while I can't go to 6 or kind of B plus, A minus level on this, I think it's an easy 5. And be happy to run this anytime I can get it. Very good card. Giant's Skewer, 1 and a black. Artifact equipment at common. Common black equipment. A side note on artifact design. I remember talking with Dave Humphreys about this several times while I was in R&D, how colorless artifacts are really hard to design, are really problematic, and tend to either be overpowered or underpowered, and it's very tough to find a middle space with colorless artifacts. So just making artifacts have color in them is great. It lets you make balanced artifacts. Anyway, let's get to what this one is. There's just a little design aside there that I love. I love colored mana symbols in artifacts just being a normal thing, not some weirdo set. It should just be normal. This is equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+1. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a creature, create a food token. More great flavor home runs. I love that they figured out in this set, in working with a fairy tale theme, that so many fairy tales involve food, whether it's a poisoned apple or the food you're not supposed to eat, or the gingerbread men, that kind of thing, cookies. There's just food shows up again and again and again in fairy tales. So it's really awesome that they made a food mechanic. I love it. That being said, so it has an equip cost of 3, and that's the big. I kind of buried the lead, which is that equipping this for 3 is a little too much. Makes me not like this card. I think people might become more enamored with this than they should be, and you're going to be able to blow people out with instant speed removal after an equip 3. Just like equip 3 is really tough to pay. So there's some artifact synergy decks though, so it does have artifact synergy going on with it. That would bump it up a little bit. But on its surface, if you're just throwing this in your deck because, hey, making my creatures a little bit better for an equip cost of 3 seems fine, I don't think it gets there on the surface. I think you're not happy to play this card until you are really looking to take advantage of food tokens or artifacts or something like that. So I would say this is... I kind of want to just go 2 on this. I think the equip cost really damages it. If you said 3, I don't blame you, but I'm going to put this frankly at the D range, where it's on the edge of playability for me at equip 3, and wait to be proven wrong. But if I get some artifact synergies, then maybe it goes up in value. But that's where I have it. I have it at 2, actually. Dionysus asks, do you think colored artifacts blur the line between artifacts and enchantments? Not in any way that it was already blurred, really. Artifacts and enchantments are very similar things mechanically already. They are mostly different in flavor, where we understand that an artifact is a physical thing that exists in the world. This is a magical object that is sitting here in front of me. And enchantments is persistent magic, but it might not even have physicality. So I think it's useful from a Vorthos perspective to have enchantments and artifacts, but it's a little extra complication on the rules front, because often artifacts could be enchantments, and enchantments could be artifacts in terms of their rules effect on the game. So you're not wrong, Dionysus, but I don't think you need to worry about blurring those lines just by adding color. I think you mostly want to care about your game balance and the fun factor, and colored artifacts help with game balance and fun factor. So I'll take any side effects that might come with that. Well, I don't know what you want, Krola. I can stop mentioning letters then. I have this at a 2. Lash of Thorns is black for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+1 and gains death touch until end of turn. The trouble here is that you only get +1 on toughness, which is actually, with gaining death touch, the most important thing. The +2 is kind of a weirdo. The +2 to power is a bit weirdo here, because the only time +2... When does +2 to power matter? It matters if you have a creature that has first strike. It matters if you're going to the face with it. But in almost no other case does it matter that it's adding 2 power. Like, for example, this card would be significantly better if it said target creature gets +0/+2 and gains death touch until end of turn. Like, I would much rather have 1 extra point of toughness than 2 extra points of power on this card, because its main job is to try and win combat, and win combat means your creature survives and theirs doesn't, and +1 toughness isn't likely to make that happen very often. So yeah, compare this to Bladebrand. Bladebrand is 100 times better than this card. Maybe not 100 times, but you hear my hyperbole, and underneath it is the truth that draw a card is amazing. If you're going to lose your creature anyway, you may as well draw a card out of it, right? I'd have, this is so much worse than Bladebrand. And this is another, yeah, I think this is fair at 2 again. I don't think you're really gonna to play this much. It's not how you want to be killing creatures. Again, it's doing a job that we've already seen amazing tools for in black. Like, why do I need this to kill a creature when I've got all these amazing tools in black? Locthwain Paladin is next. 3 and a black for a 3/2 common human knight. It has menace, so 3/2 menace for 4 is just okay. But it has adamant. If at least 3 black mana was spent to cast this spell, Locthwain Paladin enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. I don't know how much better 4/3 menace is than 3/2 menace. I mean, if you're getting it anyway, great. But I'm not super thrilled with either end of this. I think the toughness is just too low to be too excited by it at 4 mana. But I would say, where do I? It's probably a. I probably have this at a 3. I don't think this is average. I think it's slightly below average. And even with the quote upside of black, 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 it doesn't push it much for me. If you had this at an average 4, that's fine. But I bet we're not going to be playing this too much. I bet it's not going to be a priority for us. Maybe I'm wrong. If there's a really hyper aggro black deck, maybe the Knight deck is just so aggro and so good that we're happy with a 3-powered menace on 4. But maybe I'll use this as a moment to talk about how to calculate adamant a little bit, because this is a good one for it. The value of Locthwain Paladin with adamant on 4 is specifically that the idea that you're going to get this out as a 4/3 menace on turn 4. And let's think about what our mana base needs to look like to get that reliably from this. And one way you can do it is actually turn the color requirements and the non-colored requirements into somewhat of a fraction, the total requirements. So, for example, what I'm saying is to get adamant, you need 3 black mana, right? So let's assume you're nothing but basic lands. You need 3 swamps. So you need 3 black sources to do this. You have 4 total mana. There's 4 mana required, all right? 4 total mana required. 3 of it need to be black. Therefore, on average, to cast this with Adamant on turn 4, 3/4 of your lands need to produce black mana. Does that make sense? It's a nice little shortcut to kind of understand what you're asking of your mana base before you can count on a reward for something like Locthwain Paladin. So at 3/4 of your mana base, you're looking at a like a 12/5 or 11/6 style mana base before you can reliably expect to get this adamanted on turn 4. And I think this is a format that's really pushing towards those mana bases. I said at the top of the review that I was expecting that I'm going to have a lot of, for the first time in a while, I'm going to have mana bases that are 10/7, 11/6, 12/5 level mana bases. So that's one way to calculate your adamant, is like, okay, 3 out of 4 need to be black. If this were 6, then 3 out of 6 need to be black, and suddenly only half your mana needs to be black to be able to adamant on time. So the total mana cost of your adamant spells is a big indicator in terms of your reliability to actually cast it on curve with adamant. Moving on. Lost Legion is 1 black for a 2/3 at common, Spirit Knight. It is a knight, but is a Spirit Knight. When Lost Legion enters the battlefield, scry 2. Well, I'm interested. Oh, that's it. That's full stop on the rules. So a hard to cast 2/3 that scries 2 when it enters. This would not be too bad. Like if you're not, so again, if we talk about mana cost, to reliably cast this on turn 3, 2 out of the 3 sources need to be black. Therefore, on average, 2/3 of your mana needs to produce black. That's looking, again, like a 11/5, 11/6, 12/5 type of mana base. But that's assuming that you only find value in this if you're casting it on 3. One nice thing about Lost Legion is that it makes a lovely card to do a 2-spell turn. If on turn 5 you cast Lost Legion and something in your other color and scry 2, that's going to be a great turn for you. And if you do manage to get this down on 3, scrying 2 at turn 3 is a pretty good time to scry, as you will be at that pivot point of like, do I need more lands or do I need more action here? And this is going to help you get whichever you need. But I don't think it's super incredible, so I'm just going to go a little above. I haven't even done straight 4 yet. Is this just a 4? This is still probably a 5, though. I still think it's like 5. A 5. If 4 is average, this seems like a little better than average to me, so I'm going to go 5. And that's for, a simple way to think about, rather than trying to map the 1 to 7 scale directly to the letter grades. I mean, if we're going to do that, we might as well use letter grades. The way I'm thinking about 1 to 7 is 4 is average, 5 is a little better than average, 3 is a little worse than average, a lot better than average, a lot worse, and then bomb and unplayable, right? That's kind of our scale. I disagree, Stephen. I mean, you want it at 4. I guess if you can have it at 4 if you want, but I think the Scry 2 is real. I think Scry 2 is great, and it's a knight. How much fidelity do I have, Stephen? I mean, what are you arguing? That this is a 4? Or are you arguing that those other knights are a 6? I mean, the scale's not perfect. Within a bunch of stuff I gave 5s to, there's going to be a spectrum as there as well. But also, this is why I freaking hate ratings. They're fun, but if you're going to throw other like whatever, listen to my words. Ratings are the thing now, but man, I'm telling you, it's all about the words. It's all about talking through when a thing is good and when it's not, and how you're going to use it and where it's going to slot in. And then who cares about the damn number? You think this is worse than a 4? Wow. Steve, my man. By the way, Shateri is my friend Steven. I worked with Steven at Surreal Software on This Is Vegas. I've told the This Is Vegas story on stream before. Steven and I started a huge magic club basically at Surreal. together, and we've been chatting Magic for years together. And I think, Steven, if you have this as below average, like C minus, I think you like, yeah, it's black, but come on, Scry 2 is very good. Very good. Anyway, moving on. Malevolent Noble is 1 and a black for a 2/2 creature human noble, and it has 2 sacrifice an artifact or another creature. Put a +1/+1 counter on Malevolent Noble. This is an incredible 2-drop. Wow. I remember in the days where we were in R&D saying, should black get 2/2s for 2 at common with no drawback? And now we get this. One of the major things here is they could have put sorcery speed only on this, and it wouldn't have been shocking. The fact that this can be activated at instant speed is incredible, because it provides both a threat of activation during an attack, and it allows you to sacrifice a creature that was going to die anyway for some good value if you can leave the 2 mana open. And also note that it can sacrifice an artifact or another creature. So this screams food tokens to me. And again, aggressive decks need something to do with food tokens that's not gain life, because they're less interested in it than that. And so Malevolent Noble says, here's what we're going to do with food. We're going to make me big. And how much? But again, I think this is better than average. Been a lot of better than average. I haven't personally voted for 4 yet, I think, but this just feels better than average. This feels like a 5. I don't know what to say. This is better than your average bear. It can sacrifice itself. Oh, can't. Yeah, as I say, it can't sacrifice itself. No, no eating yourself, Malevolent Noble. I disagree. Average bears are maybe literally a 2/2 for 2 is below average, but 2/2s for 2 with legit upside are definitely above average. Those are super important. The below average ones are the ones you play when you have to, but you are eagerly going to snap up. Let me go back and put it up again. I mean, this is better than average. It just is. Just because a 2/2 for 2 with no text is worse than average doesn't mean that this is just average. I think this is definitely better than average. Memory Theft is 2 and a black for a sorcery. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card. You may put a card that has adventure that player owns from exile into that player's graveyard. Interesting. So Memory Theft is in the long line of 3 mana, look at your hand, take your best non-land card, and then get a little bonus. When we saw this from, like, we see this effect all the time, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad, depending on both the format and on the bonus you get. So let's take let's think about War of the Spark and was it Toll? What, I forget. It's Toll something. Toll of Warfare, something like that. Anyway, the Toll had the benefit of making a 1/1 army token, or a 0/0 creature with a counter on it. Toll of the Invasion, thank you. Toll of the Invasion was great, but that was because it was in a bomb-heavy format in which you were often trying to strip something monstrous from their hand before they could play it on turn 4, or their turn 3. And the 1/1 token was hugely important. There was all sorts of sacrifice effects that could use that 1/1 token. A 1/1 creature could be proliferated. That token could be proliferated up. You had other things that could make that token bigger. So there's basically just a million things going on with Toll of the Invasion and the 1/1 token it created that made it really a priority card by the end of the format. I don't think we're there with Memory Theft. That's my long way of getting to the fact that what's going on here with Memory Theft is nowhere near as good as what was happening with Toll of the Invasion. And I think I'm only going to be interested in Memory Theft if it turns out that this is a just a bomb-driven Prince format where we really need to get stuff out of people's hands before they can play them. I'm also more likely to play it in Sealed, where you're dealing with more bombs that you have to figure out how to get rid of. But I think this is below average. I almost want to go, I think I want to go 2 on it. I think it's something I just don't want to play until this, until it shows me something else. So I don't think it's unplayable, but I'm going to say that this is a 2. We have a rare here. Murderous Rider is 1 black for a creature, zombie knight. It is a 2/3. It has lifelink, and when it dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. It has adventure, though. So it has also Swift End. 1 black is an instant adventure. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. You lose 2 life. So Windmill Slam, first pick. It's interesting, like, the clause of when it dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library, maybe means they just didn't want to have looping 2-for-1 removal stuff going on. Because if this died and went to your graveyard, you could bring it back, you could reanimate it to your hand and then have another killer removal spell. So looks like they nerfed it a little bit by having it go to the bottom of its owner's library when it dies. But, I mean, okay, what would we give Swift End? Swift End at 1 black instant, destroy target creature or planeswalker, you lose 2 life. That right there is like a maybe a 6. Even in itself, a 5 or a 6. Like, Swift End by itself is at least a 5. Maybe, is this a 7? Is this just a 7? It's either a 6 or a 7, but I think it's not quite dominating enough to be a 7. So I think I got to give it a 6. Like, 7s, I just think sevens need to be able to take over the game by themselves. And while Murderous Rider is incredible value and a great place to be, it's not going to win the game by itself. So I think we say that it's a 6. Oathsworn Knight is 1 black for a human knight at rare. It's a 0/0, so what does it come in with? Oathsworn Knight enters the battlefield with 4 +1/+1 counters on it. So we have a starting 4/4 for 3 at rare. Oathsworn Knight attacks each combat if able. There's your first drawback. So it's a biggin, but it does have to attack. Then it says, if damage would be dealt to Oathsworn Knight while it has a +1/+1 counter on it, prevent that damage and remove a +1/+1 counter from it. Okay, so this has the text that was confusing me about that War of the Spark uncommon. It has what I'm used to, which is that, yes, it has to attack each turn, but when something tries to trade with it, it only trades with one of the counters instead of the full knight. On defense, you only get 1 turn of defense with it, and then it starts having to attack. So it's really only good in an aggro deck. I think it's above average, but it's got a lot of loopholes. Yeah, I'm talking about Conjurant. Conjurant didn't have Conjurant. You removed as many counters as was equal to the damage. So if the Conjurant was a 5/5 and hit a 5/5, they would actually trade. If the Oathsworn Knight were a 5/5 and hit a 5/5, it would kill the 5/5 and become a 4/4. So it's obviously much powerful on that front. And it can attack through Death Touch. That's a good point. Death Touch does not have the effect on this that you want. Excuse me. On curve, it's fine if you're aggro. My big problem with the card is that it's a liability on defense. It basically does, if they've got a big life cushion and are beating you down, they're going to wait 1 turn. This starts attacking. They can ignore it and get you. But I still think it's better than average. I'm not willing to go any higher than like a 5 on it, though. I don't know where the voting ended up, but I have this. I think I have this at 5. Order of Midnight is 1 and a black for a human knight. It's a 2/2 flying that can't block. It's an uncommon, but it also has adventure. So before we even get to the adventure, Order of Midnight, 2/2 flying for 2, can't block. Again, it's only good in aggro. It can't defend at all. But assuming you're aggro and it's a knight, like it's aggro and it's on tribe, that's already great, and I would be happy to play this in any aggressive black deck. I just wouldn't want to play it in a very controlling black deck. But maybe I would, because it also has the sorcery Alter Fate attached, because it's an adventure. Alter Fate says 1 black, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Woof! Hello, Gravedigger. Nice. Thank you for that follow. Appreciate that. Anyway, wow. I'm going to be first picking this a lot, I expect. I think this is into the 6 territory for me. It's not just a little better than average, it's significantly better than average. In any kind of mid to late game, it is going to be a 2-for-1 installment. Gravedigger is great. I think one of the big challenges with this card is going to be figuring out when to just have the discipline to play this as a 2/2 flyer for 2/2. And the answer is going to be basically every time if I've got nothing else to do, but I really want to be finding something else to do on 2, and then pulling this out on turn 4, getting back the 2-drop that's already dead and then casting this. That would be neat. Yeah, if you get 2 a turn, if you get 2, you can loop them. We were messing around with this card with Jay Schneider in Constructed, and it looks like it's going to be a Constructed level card. So keep an eye out for that. But basically, for limited, I'm going to be taking this first a lot. My only question is whether it rises to a 6, and I think the 2-for-1 Gravediggery nature makes me want to give it a 6. I think it's that good, because this baseline stat is just so good. It's so 2/2 flying for 2 is big game. So if you said 5, I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to tone it down a little bit, but I think this gets up to the 6 range. Piper of the Swarm is a rare at 1 and a black for a 1/3 human warlock, and rats you control have menace. So we got a little Pied Piper flavor here. Rats you control have menace. 1 and a black, tap, create a 1/1 black rat creature token. 2 black, tap, sacrifice 3 rats, gain control of target creature. Wow, so if the Piper gets enough rats going, the Piper can Pied Piper you or whatever creature it wants. It's a while before you do that. So let's see, you pay the 2 to get going. Then you pay 6 more mana to create 3 1/1 black rat creature tokens. Then you pay another 4 mana to sacrifice 3 rats to gain control of target creature. That's 10 mana and a bunch of turns before you ever steal something. However, if you can make a nice control deck that's just lockdown control, this is inevitability. I don't like this when I'm up against a lot of pressure. But, a 1/3 for 3 is, or 1/3 for 2 is not the worst to hold the ground a little bit early. And, if there's other things that make rats, then I'm definitely more in on this. So if there's some build around rat potential, those are obviously going to go up. But I think this does represent inevitability in a control deck, such that if you had this plus some grave digging, some Order of Midnight stuff, and you're looking to go long and control the board and win with inevitability, this is inevitability. So I like it from that standpoint. It's just that you're going to have to realize sometimes that maybe it's a 1/3 for 2, and when your opponent plays a 3/1 for 2, that you just actually maybe have to trade off. Although, of course, at that point, you just make a black rat creature token. So it's very mana intensive, but it does some very powerful stuff. Like, basically, if you can stabilize the board and get going with this, you're just going to win. It's just you might not have time to. So, where do you like this? Probably just another a little bit better than average type card. I feel like I've been giving a lot of 5s out, but this does feel like maybe it's even a... Yeah, I feel like it's a high 5. low 6. So I'm just going to call it a 5. But if you in a control deck that has all the tools to get to the end game, it's a fine finisher. And that's why, again, I'm less about ratings and more about jobs. I want to know what job my cards are doing. And the job of this card is to provide a control deck with some inevitability, I think. And to that extent, it does that job fine, and I would be happy to take this. And I might even take it might take it first pick and try to build around it too. So I like it. It's a clever card. Yeah, maybe it should be 6. It might be good enough. It depends on the speed of the format. If the format turns out to be pretty slow, that Piper might be a 6. So here we are on Rankle, Master of Pranks, 2 black for a mythic legendary creature fairy rogue. It's a 3/3 for 4 at mythic. It has flying and haste. So 3/3 floor, flying, haste. 3/3 for 4, flying and haste is already great. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, choose any number. Each player discards a card. Each player loses 1 life and draws a card. Each player sacrifices a creature. Well, you had me at 3/3 flying haste for 4, so I was already in there. I think 3/3 flying haste for 4 is already easily a 5, closing in on 6. So I think the fact that you then can choose all of these things to do with your when you hit puts it easily into the 6 range. But I don't think I have it at 7. I don't think this is like an A+, but this is a solid 6. I think this is an easy 6. Reaper of Night is 5 black for a common 4/5. And whenever Reaper of Night attacks, if defending player has 2 or fewer cards in hand, it gains flying until end of turn. Obviously, that's not super impressive, but let's look at the adventure side of this. It also has the adventure sorcery attached called Harvest Fear. For 3 and a black, target opponent discards 2 cards. So I almost feel like it's funny. This is all about the Harvest Fear, really. I think this is better than it looks, and I think this is going to be Steve's on 2 here. All right, Steve, I'm going to bet you that this is a 4. I think you're going to come around to this being a 4 by the end of the format, and here's why. Discard 2 cards for 4 mana is not great, but everybody has been hit by that. Like in War of the Spark, there was the Davriel's common that did that, and it hurts, right? Like, man, getting hit with discard 2 is really harsh. And I know that 7 mana for a 4/5 that sometimes flies is not super impressive, but folks, this has to be answered. You're not going to cast a 4/5 and then have them be able to ignore it. Like, they've got to deal with it. So I think this is actually an excellent card for long game control matchups. And I think this is a card. The question is whether it's going to be main deckable or not. And I know that's funny coming from, I said that it's a 4. But when you choose to play this, when it's in the right matchup, this is going to be one of your important cards, I think. But then against aggro, you can't play this at all, right? So this is the tough part of number grades. But I really think that it's garbage against aggro, and that it's aces against control. Like that against control, you're going to be so happy to be doing this. You get 2 cards from their hand and then drop something that they have to spend a 3rd card on. Yeah, maybe it's like if you were doing this in LR parlance, it would be like a sideboard B plus. Like, I think out of the board in a control mirror, this is going to be insane. However, it's worthless against aggro. So that is what has me down at a 4. Yeah, and sealed, I'm going to play this every time. Like, sealed, you should play this every time. But LR mentioned that card advantage might be so prevalent in this set with the adventures that it might be less relevant than typical. What would be less relevant about it? I mean, if there's heavy card advantage in the format, that makes it better because you're likely to have 2 targets at all times. A big drawback of discard 2 card spells is that if Oppo is top decking, they don't have anything to discard and it becomes a complete blank. And so if card drawing is going to be so prevalent that everybody's hands are going to be full, that it actually makes this card better. So I'm gonna be bold and call this a 4. I haven't listened to all of LR's set review. I've listened to some of it. I do remember them talking about this, and I remember them thinking that I remember thinking they were underrating this. That because Harvest Fear isn't good, and because Reaper of Night isn't good, it can feel like the card isn't good. But I think it's going to be an amazing card out of the board against control, and I will main deck it if I feel like it, or if I feel like it's appropriate. I see what you're saying, James. Unless their hand is mostly creatures on adventures, sure. It doesn't discard their exiled creature card that they can cast, but still. Anyway, I stand by it. I'm going to give it a 4. So Ben S and Deathsea are a little bit more in my realm. Media, I don't know if they were like 5 on it, but again, it's the average case thing. Oh yeah, and here's the removal that made me really downgrade that -X removal, because why do we need to play 5 mana instant speed -X when they're giving us things like Reeve Soul at common? 1 and a black sorcery, destroy target creature with power 3 or less. So there you go. The Reeve Soul handles the early game, and then the Epic Fall or whatever handles the late game, right? This is a solid removal. It can't go to 6, but it's better than a 4, so it's a straight up 5. I think it's a pretty straightforward 5. Revenge of Ravens is 3 and a black for an enchantment uncommon. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, that creature's controller loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So we have a card here that on defense completely blanks 1-powered attacks, right? If I have this out, you're not sending a 1-powered attacker at me. I heard LR talking about this one too, so I think they got it. I think they covered this one pretty well, which is to say it's going to play better than it looks. But again, it's all about the situation. Against 1 and 2 powered creatures, this is going to give you a lot of time and make things really tough on Oppo. If Oppo is playing big green beasties, this is laughable, right? Like, I attack you with my 7/7 Vorstkla. Yes, I lose 1 life and you gain life. Now what are you going to do with my 7/7 Vorstkla, right? So it's not really great if your opponent is coming at you with big stuff, but it's quite good against a Weenie Rush, and I would definitely play it in that spot. I kind of want to start this in the board if I can, but maybe we'll figure out that this is a main deck card. I just think it's situational enough that I would be wanting to... I want to know that it's good before I bring it in. So on a 1 to 7 scale, averaging out all possible situations, I'm going to give it a 3. Because I think it's, I just think you don't want it at all in some cases. But against aggressive 1-power, 2-power type creature decks, it rises up to about a 5. So unplayable against some stuff, rises up to a 5 against other stuff. I'm going to give it a 3. I do want to call out something they mentioned on LR because I think it's super important. This goes, well, they didn't say it this way, but I think this Revenge of Ravens goes way up in value as you have big butted defenders. If I knew my deck was full of 1/4s and 0/5s and 1/4 flyers with defender, that type of thing, then this becomes great because the more that you can blank an opposing attack with a blocking creature, the better Revenge of the Ravens get. So if I have, let's say I have 2 0/4 walls, and you've got 3 2/2s, you should be, normally you're able to attack for 2 every time, but now that's not good for you, right? It's like Revenge of Ravens with high toughness defenders creates real problems even for cards, even for decks with medium-sized creatures. So you can really build around it as well, and make sure that you have good defenders, high toughness, and then Revenge of Ravens gets even better, and oppos will start doing the math and being like, well, technically I can get through, but I take 5 damage to do it or whatever. So just keep that in mind as you assess whether or not it belongs in your deck during any given matchup. Smitten Swordmaster, 1 and a black for 2/1 lifelinker that has an adventure attached. So we first of all, though, 2/1 lifelink for 2, we're already in. Like I didn't play what was it called, the one in Guilds of Ravnica? I forget what the vampire is, but there's like anyway, we've seen this before at common, and I've been happy to play that at common without anything attached. So oops, and here we get Curry Favor attached to it. Sorcery Adventure, you gain for a single black, you gain X life and each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of knights you control. Well, you're never going to be currying favor on turn 1 to get the Swordmaster down on 2. So this adventure is pretty light in impact. I don't think we're going to get too much value out of the adventure side, but when you do, it could be insane. If you're in the heavy knight deck and you draw this late, being able to say, oh, well, I'm going to actually go single black and drain you for 4 and then add a 5th knight to the battlefield. So given that we were totally willing to play a 2/1 lifelink for 2, yeah, Child of Night, thank you, War Furnace. So if we were happy to play Child of Night, the Curry Favor side is just gravy. And Child of Night would have been, like, if Child of Night were in the set, I'd give it a 4. I think that's just an average card, or maybe it's even a, you know, but I think that means this needs to be a 5. And again, Steven, you know, there's just a wide range of 5, I guess. I don't know. I think it's a little better than average, though. Not too much. Maybe I should just call this a 4. Thing is, the Knight Tribal seems super real, so I just think it should be a 5, because I think Curry Favor is going to win some games that you weren't expecting. Yeah, we could have gone 1 through 10, but then that gets too granular. I don't know. That's why numbers are just awkward in general. That's why I just like to talk it out. Spectre's Shriek is a single black for an uncommon. Target opponent reveals their hand. You may choose a non-land card from it. If you do, that player exiles that card. If a non-black card is exiled this way, exile a card from your hand. So that's a little bit weird in how it's worded. But basically, if you're up against a black opponent playing black cards and you strip a black card, it's pretty nice. No drawback. You just kind of like Thoughtseize for no damage their best black card. But if you're up against non-black, you're going to have to damage yourself as well. One thing I don't know about exiling, maybe somebody can help me out with this who's read the rules updates or whatever, but if I let's say I Spectre's Shriek and take away your white card and I exile my Smitten Swordmaster from hand, do I get to cast Smitten Swordmaster from exile, or do I only get to cast Smitten Swordmaster from exile if I've done the adventure? No? Okay, in that's obviously a big that's a big difference, right? Because if I could exile my adventure dude with this, then I like it a lot more. But no, it's a real cost. So you're kind of 2-for-1ing yourself in that case, which makes me think this is a sideboard. I only want to bring this in against someone who is known to be playing black, actually. So I would call this a sideboard card, but to number grade it, I would give it like a 2, because mostly it's an F, but every once in a while you bring it out of the board. So then I'll give it a 2, because sometimes you're bringing it in out of the board. Sir, is SYR what there is? That like sir? Why is it spelled S-Y-R? Somebody tell me why it's spelled S-Y-R. But Sir Conrad the Grim, because it's magic. It's gender neutral. Okay, I'm in. But then just use a different word. So I don't know. That's weird. Sir Conrad the Grim, 3 black for an uncommon 5/4 legendary creature, human knight. We've seen how knighty the black creatures have been, so we've got another knight. Whenever another creature dies, so not Sir Conrad, but another creature dies, or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent, and for 1 and a black, you can have each player put the top card of their library into their graveyard. Wow, this is a one-man win condition, kinda. This is a pretty impressive card. It's 5 mana. That slot gets full pretty quickly, and it's a little bit weird to parse, because let's look at it again. It doesn't trigger on itself, but it can be any other creature, yours or your opponent's. Or if a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere, so your graveyard or opponent's graveyard, it triggers it. But if a creature card leaves your graveyard only, it triggers it. So it's weird that, like, it's symmetrical, then just you. I'm a little surprised by that. I'm surprised they didn't say, or a creature card leaves a graveyard instead of your graveyard. Maybe that was too powerful, they decided, or something, but it's just weird that 2 of them are two of them are anybody, and then 1 of them is just you. So that's a little awkward. Yeah, totally. MTG Goddess, I agree. Says it reads like a development tweak hack. Like, it was probably nice and elegant before, but they're just like, it's just a little bit too good, so we're going to make it less elegant to be correctly powered. That seems correct. Okay, so yeah, discard works. Lot of ways to get this done. I think if you see this across the way, you're gonna have to kill it or you're gonna die, and hopefully you're seeing it in front of you with your opponent thinking that, and that makes me we're into that 5+ range. I think it's clearly a 5. The question is, does it rise to 6? Is it literally B+? Is it like A- level? It might be. It's just it's a build. You got to build around it a bit, but it has the engine built into itself. Man, did you guys vote on this one yet? Or is voting still even happening? I don't know, but I'm gonna go a little bit. I'm gonna push this, and I'm gonna call it a 6. I think it's realistically probably between 5 and 6. But yeah, if this had been rare, like if they'd made this rare, it would be cheaper and smaller. Like, that's classic how they would make this rare, is just make it cheaper and smaller. Oh well. Again, I only talked about voting with chat as something I intended to figure out for next time. We'll have an awesome voting system for next set review. How about that? Maybe even for the other colors. I'm probably only going to get to black today. We're already past noon, and so we'll keep going here. Anyway, yeah, I like this as a 6, and I'm going to take it early and try to make Conrad here work for me. Tempting Witch. I feel like Cinderella here, looking at a nice red apple from a witch. I bet it's poisoned. 2 and a black from creature, human warlock, for a 1/3. When Tempting Witch enters the battlefield, create a food token. So that's good, because 1/3 for 3 is obviously not up to snuff. And then it has 2 tap, sacrifice a food. Target player loses 3 life. Well, she's giving the apple to you and not your creatures, unfortunately. Or your opponents, rather, because I really would, this would be great if she were doing some damage to creatures. But the fact that it's just extra damage to you, I don't know how good that is. I think that's kind of like this end game. We're gonna burn you out with food. I'm gonna chuck apples at you until you're dead type thing. And I suppose if you have a heavy food theme, I could see playing this as a win condition. My real problem is that a 1/3 for 3 is not a good blocker for that point in the curve. And if you're looking to make it to the late game to start hurling food around, you really need to survive to get there. And I just don't like a 1/3 on 3 helping you do that. If this were just a mana less, I mean, obviously that's easy to say, but if this were a 1/3 for 2 that did all this, maybe if it was a 1/3 for 2 where you had to tap to spend 2 to make food or something. I just don't love it here. And I kind of feel like it's a 2 on average, because if you're doing a lot of fancy food stuff, you can get it up to a 3 or maybe even a 4. But if you are not doing anything else except just running this out there and hoping that the chucking the one apple you've made at your opponent, that's not very impressive, and that's like unplayable. So that's why I have it at a 2. Not that it can't be significantly better than that with the right build around, but I'm not doing build around and sideboarding grades here. I'm doing an average. So in an average case, I like this actually at 2. Yeah. You're right, Goddess. Doming your opponent for 3 a couple turns in a row could be a big deal, but you got to build around to do that, which is what, again, this is my average. It's not that this is a 2 in every case. If you can get the food thing going, I do like this as a possible win condition, but if there's any good fun police, any good aggro in the format, you're going to be very disappointed with the ability to make it to the stage of the game where you can do that thing. Fun police is kind of general Magic slang, I think, in the limited context for aggro. Like, aggro is fun police. So if there's good fun police, Tempting Witch gets a lot worse. If there's no fun police, I'll raise the witch up for sure. Wicked Guardian is next, a 3 and a black common creature human noble. It's a 4/2. When Wicked Guardian enters the battlefield, you may have it deal 2 damage to another creature you control. If you do, draw a card. So you have to damage your own creature, which means that either you are cycling a token or a now useless 2 toughness creature to draw a card, but more than likely you are playing something like Tempting Witch on 3 to make a 3 toughness creature, and then Wicked Guardian on 4 to hit your 3 power creature and have it live. I really like this card. I think it asks you to jump through a little bit of a hoop, but I think having a 3 toughness or better creature on board is not the worst hoop to try and deal with. But a 4/2 also trades down. However, if you've already gotten a card, I don't care about trading down as much. Yeah, Shateri, that's a good point. Stephen points out the 1 black 2/3 Scry 2 is a great card to play right ahead of the Wicked Guardian. So you have to build around this a bit, but it's like a 4 or a 5. I'll just give this, I haven't even given a 4 yet. I'm just going to give it a 4 because there's some build around work to do. But if you can do that work, maybe it rises up to a 5+. Sorry, Fiddles, I appreciate your efforts. Is it not doing any poll at all? What if I do poll? Do it this way. Oh, it does think another one's going on. Funny. All right, who knows what's, we broke it. You think this is a 6, huh? I think this is a 4 or a 5. If you said 5, I could, okay, jokes. But you never know. Some people rate cards differently. You could make an argument for 5, because I think you'll pretty reliably get a card here, but also it's pretty... Don't get best case scenario mentality about it and think that it's just a 3/4 ETB draw card, or a 4 mana 4/2 draw card, because it's not, right? Yeah, it trades down a lot, but I don't care about trading down if I've drawn a card off it, right? Like Rock's, was it Faithmender? Rock's Brute? Rock's Brute? Rock something or another. Green got this for 4 and a green, and we played it fine when it was guaranteed. Oracle, Rock's Oracle, thank you. Rock's Oracle was a guaranteed draw card for 4/2 at 5, and we played that pretty happily. But that was better. Like, it's just, it doesn't need anything else for it to do its thing. So anyway, that's why I have it a little worse than Rock's Oracle, is what I'm saying. Wishclaw Talisman is 1 and a black for a rare artifact. Wishclaw Talisman enters the battlefield with 3 wish counters on it. So this looks like a monkey paw thing. Let's see what the curse of the monkey paw is. 1, tap, remove a wish counter from the monkey paw. Search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. An opponent gains control of Wishclaw Talisman. Activate this ability only during your turn. Are we ever playing this in Limited? Yeah, maybe, because you get 2 and they get 1, right? You're saying no, but like, if they activate it, you get it back. So, oh yeah, this is another one where if you have, there's the ability to sacrifice artifacts for various effects. So you could tap, remove a wish counter, and with the search on the stack, with this ability on the stack, you can sacrifice the talisman to something, and then your opponent won't get it. So I think this is actually playable, because if your opponent uses it, you get it back and get to use it again. I'll take my 2 best cards against your best card. Although we've used a card to do it, and they haven't. So that's a point against it as well. But still, it's your 2 best cards for their 1 best card. I don't know what to think of this yet. I'd like to try it sometime, but I'm probably going to put this at a 2 or a 3, and say that without some ways to either sack the artifact so that they don't get any value out of it, or without some serious power in your deck. Because what you don't want to do is have a deck that's just not, it doesn't have a lot of power in it, and you just kind of run this, and you get 2 okay things, and then they get the most amazing thing with their search, you know? So I'm going to give it a lowish grade, but I think it has some build around and fun play potential that it's not completely unplayable. I'll call it a 2, though, with a chance of rising to much higher if we have the right tools for it. All right, Witch's Vengeance is 1 black for a sorcery at rare. Creatures of the creature type of your choice get -3/-3 until end of turn. Beware Knight decks. Witch's Vengeance is going to be on our list of things we can lose to. We're going to be playing, we're going to ask ourselves, okay, wait, how do we lose this game? What are the ways we could lose this game? And it turns out one of the answers is going to be Witch's Vengeance. This is super powerful because provided your opponent has a 3 toughness creature of a creature type that you don't have 3 or less toughness in, this is at least a 1-for-1 removal spell with a chance of being much better than that. So yeah, I'm gonna give this a 5, but it's got even upside beyond that. You're gonna have times where this is a 6 or a 7 and just wins you games that you wouldn't have been able to win otherwise. Everybody's voting sub. It's not a submarine. I need to hear it. Sub. I don't know what I just did. Am I going to win a subscription to my channel? I'll take it. Anyway, so yeah, this card's great. We're going to first pick it a lot. I would kind of look at it almost as murder-like. Oh, thank you. But I'm going to call this a 5. I think it's a solid 5. And Oh, funny misspelling here. Jonathan, I have a viewer, Jonathan Boyd is the viewer who made this, but which is something for Jonathan to figure out for the next time. Funny. Yeah, that's the end of the black. That's going to take us to the end of this stream today, I think. I need to go get some food in me and get on with my day. Tomorrow, I will not be here in the morning. Going to take my daughter to Evergreen State College tomorrow and drop her off. That's going to be great. Thank you, One Cold Monkey. One Cold Monkey is the winner. I'm glad I didn't win that. Anyway, so I will not see you tomorrow at the usual time, but I'm going to try my darndest to get on for some preview Eldraine sealed streaming when I get back from dropping off my daughter in the early mid-evening Seattle time would be my guess. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today. And I'm going to say goodbye to our YouTube friends. Thank you for hanging, and check out for the next color tomorrow. Bye.